Imagine for a moment that you are living in the year 1547. You hear the booming voice of Henry VIII echoing through the palace halls. He is demanding food, lots of food, and not just any food, but the finest delicacies that England has to offer. You watch in horror as he stuffs himself like a glutton, oblivious to the fact that he is rapidly growing more obese. As his weight increases, so does his paranoia. He fears that someone is out to get him, that they want him dead, and so he surrounds himself with bodyguards, both armed and unarmed, to protect him at all times. But it's too late. As the king's health deteriorates, he becomes more and more grotesque by the day. His ulcers ooze and stink. His breath is foul. He is a walking corpse, and yet he remains on the throne until his very last breath. We know Henry VIII as the king with 6 wives, but behind the legend lies a story of gluttony, paranoia, and cruelty that turned him into one of history's most terrifying rulers. Now, for more royal mishaps, including a royal pig assassination, stay tuned. He was so fat that the Tudors were shocked. No one had ever seen a man so obese. The king's legs were ulcerous and stank so badly that his servants were traumatized. He couldn't walk without assistance, so they had to carry him around in a chair. Everywhere he went, the stench followed. The king was so ashamed of his body that he kept it hidden from public view. But when he died, the people got a glimpse of what lay beneath. They found the king's legs, one of which was completely rotten. It was clear that the king's body was a symbol of the rot that had set into his reign. The Tudors had come to power promising to bring back the glory of England. But what does it mean for a monarch to be fat and obese? And what does it say about the state of his kingdom? To find out more about the shocking story behind these images, stay tuned. 1536, a year of death and destruction. Henry VIII was in a tournament. He got knocked off his horse and was unconscious for hours. Now, historians believe that he suffered a traumatic brain injury, but some say it was just a concussion. But either way, something snapped in Henry's mind that day. And from this moment on, his paranoia, his cruelty, and his rage would escalate. Let me set the scene for you. It's the year 1536. King Henry VIII is in a tournament. He's wearing his finest clothes. He's on his war horse, ready to joust. And then, suddenly, as he's about to charge, the horse crashes into him and knocks him out cold. And now we can play it again and again in our heads. The horse crashes into Henry, knocking him off his feet. He's lying on the ground. His body is limp. It's a very slow fade to black. And then we see a glimpse of Henry waking up, but he's not the same ever since that day. Did you know that Henry VIII's wives weren't just beheaded? Okay, so we all know about Anne Boleyn, right? She was executed for treason after giving birth to a daughter, but before that, she was made to watch as 2 of her alleged lovers were executed in front of her in the Tower of London. Talk about a traumatic experience, and it wasn't just her. Catherine Howard, one of Henry's younger wives, was also forced to watch as her alleged lover, Thomas Culpeper, was executed. She trembled in fear as he was led to the block, but it was always darkest in the tower. For Anne, the walls were closing in on her. She could feel the darkness seeping into her soul. She had nowhere to escape the feeling of dread that now permeated every aspect of her life. Henry was a master manipulator, and he knew how to make his wives feel constantly on edge. He would appear suddenly at the end of their walks in the garden, catching them off guard. Sometimes he would just stand there and stare at them while they were talking to someone else. He wanted them to always feel like they were being watched, to never have a moment's peace. And if that wasn't enough, he would then turn and walk away without a word, leaving them standing there in the cold. 5,000 calories a day. That's what it takes to feed Henry VIII. Entire pigs were slaughtered for his meals. Dozens of dishes were prepared. And he believed that certain foods had magical powers. I mean, look at this table. It's groaning under the weight of all the meat. Alchemists would whisper over his food, adding secret ingredients to make it taste even better. They were so secretive about their recipes that they wouldn't even write them down. They feared that if their techniques were discovered by outsiders, they would be killed. Henry ate like a king, because he was a king. I mean, look at him. He's literally drowning in food, but he wasn't just eating for himself. He was also feeding his guests. And if there was any food left over, it was a sign of great generosity. This was more than just a meal. It was a survival ritual. It was a display of power. It was a feast fit for a king, or at least that's what they wanted him to think, because in reality, Henry VIII was terrified of being poisoned. The king is dead. Long live the king. This is a story about a king who was betrayed by his own court. They turned against him, hunted him down, and killed him. But before that, he had a chance to escape. He had one chance to escape, but he didn't take it. Why? Because he was too scared. See, this king ruled over a kingdom of secrets. His court was filled with spies spying on his every move. There were secret passages and hidden tunnels everywhere. And the king's own chambers were guarded by men he trusted, or so he thought, because they were also part of the plot. As the story goes, the king was betrayed by his best friend, the Duke of Buckingham. Together, they discovered the secrets of the universe. They wrote them down on scrolls and hid them all over the kingdom. And then the king went mad and tried to kill the Duke. But the Duke was prepared. He had an army of spies and assassins at his command, and they killed the king. This is the story of King George II, and you can find out more through additional resources. Henry VIII was the King of England from 1509 to 1547, and during his 38-year reign, he had over 300 people killed, but it wasn't just commoners who felt his wrath. Many nobles lost their heads, including the Duke of Norfolk, who was executed for the crime of having a dream about the king's death. The problem with Henry VIII is that he didn't just kill people for what they did. He killed people for what he suspected they might do in the future, and this led to a breakdown of the justice system. People were so afraid of being accused of treason that they started executing people based on rumors alone. Take, for example, this shadowy execution block. We don't know who these people are, but we can see how terrified they are as they wait for their turn to be killed. And when it comes to Henry, we can't help but notice his suspicious glare. Was he really the king? Was he really in charge of the entire judicial system? Or was he just a pawn in a Game of Thrones? Henry VIII may have been a tyrant, but even in death, he was a king. His coffin was so bloated with gases that it burst open during his procession, spilling its contents onto the ground. The stench was so bad that it shocked even the most hardened of mourners. Some say that the sight of the rotting flesh spilling out of the coffin was a blessing, a symbol of the kingdom's relief at finally being rid of such a horrible king. Others say it was a curse, a warning of the fate that awaited them all. For while Henry may have been dead, his kingdom was not. And, so the story goes, the people of England were horrified to realize that their new king, Edward VI, was the very image of his father, Henry VIII. And they should have been, because just like his father, Edward would go on to do some truly horrible things. The ghost of King Charles II is haunting Windsor Castle, according to a new report. For the last few months, eerie noises have been heard around the castle, along with the smell of decay. Some believe that the spirit of the king is restless. The report states that at night, ghostly white figures have been seen floating past the castle's famous clock tower. And during the day, visitors have reported hearing strange whispers and footsteps. One particularly gruesome detail is that the smell of rotting flesh has also been detected near his tomb. It's said that the only time this smell goes away is when the tomb is opened for cleaning. A source told the press, "It's clear that the monster that he was is still lingering in our world. People are understandably terrified." Footage from inside St. George's Chapel shows a candlelit vigil for the king, but the light flickers ominously, just like the ghost of King Charles II. You ever wonder what it would be like if someone had too much power? Well, meet Henry VIII, your King of England. We're used to thinking of monarchs as these larger-than-life figures with all the power and money in the world at their fingertips. But what happens when that much power goes to someone's head? Well, let's find out. This is Henry VIII, also known as the most powerful man in the world, or at least he thought he was. See, Henry VIII was a king with a really big ego and an even bigger appetite. He ate his way through 5 wives, 2 of them beheaded, 1 died in childbirth, another one he just got bored of, and the last one outlived him. He was also really paranoid, which led to him making one of the worst decisions a king could make, breaking with the Catholic Church and starting his own religion, just so he could divorce his first wife and marry his mistress. And as the years went on, Henry became more and more obsessed with his own power and less with being a good king. In the end, Henry VIII's story is not just one of kings and queens, but of how unchecked power can turn a man into a monster. Now, check out this other video on screen.